So in this case, we already have baked cake. So the first step would be to crumble the cake up.
Alexa is our little baker, so she can help her.
Okay. So we're gonna try to get it as much of in a crumb as we can. So any hard parts, you can just take it out. The parts that won't crumble.
What do you want?
You put it in the...
Right.
Yes, they won't. And you don't want, like another reason why we're taking out the hard parts, when you actually start forming it into a ball, if it's too hard, that's the part that's gonna stick out. And so when you dip it, you'll see like, it's not gonna be smooth. So that's what she's doing right now. I was telling the previous class that for me at home, when I bake, a lot of times when you bake a cake, the dome, like the part that's on top, so that dome that sticks up, you're gonna have to cut that part off in order for you to actually start your cake. So a lot of times I don't throw those away. I actually just wrap it up and put it in the freezer, and I can use those for cake pops later on because you can crumble those and it would turn into this. And then another thing is, if you ever decide to make a cake where you have to carve the cake, all the carvings that you take out, don't throw those away because it would still be something that you can use for cake pop as well. And a lot of times, let's say you carve a cake and you accidentally cut off a part that you realize that you need. Well, one of the things that you can also use this for is when you mix the buttercream, it forms like a paste. So you can use that to kind of build that part that you cut off back. So those are like the benefits of saving your shavings or the dome part of your cake. So, if you guys have any questions for me so far, feel free to ask. Okay, so now that we've gotten all this crumbled up, the next step would be to add buttercream to it. You want to start off, you want to start off with a little bit of buttercream first, because the texture that you're trying to get is one that when you form it into a ball like this, it actually, we can do that one first. So we'll start with it. Thank you. We'll start with this first. Try to mix it in really good. Incorporate all the cake and the buttercream together.
So that was one of our mistakes. We put too much buttercream in ours.
Because if you put too much buttercream, you would need more cake to kind of balance it out if you have that extra cake. But if you don't, then you definitely want to start with a little bit of buttercream first. And then if you need more, then you can add more. In as much as a lot of times we prefer to work with our bare hands, you know, because this is something that you're not going to be cooking again, it's already made. This is something that people are going to eat right, like straight off. You always want to make sure you wear gloves, because you know you might have like some stuff stuck in your fingernails or whatever, and it's nice to just make sure you're clean. Keep your station clean as well. Okay, so this texture is good now. So what we're gonna do, the next step would be to actually form the balls. She's gonna bring another scoop so you can help me, because this part takes a while. Okay. The reason why I'm using an ice cream scoop is to make sure that we get a uniform size all around. If you're trying to sell these, you don't want to use, like, if you don't have this to use, then you'll end up having some being bigger than the other. But if you have this, then you can actually get an exact size for all of the ones that you're making. So you do that first to make sure that you've released all the air pockets, and then you start rolling it.
And that white cake balls are so cute because they're just like perfectly round and all sides and smooth and
So while you're doing this, I said before that you want to make sure you squeeze out all the air pockets. If you form a ball that has a crack in it, when you put your chocolate coating over it, that crack that you're going to have is going to create an air pocket. And so what ends up happening is that the cake either cracks at the end, or you'll get like some bubbles on the top of the chocolate. And when those bubbles, like when your chocolate dries out, then it would become like an empty space there, which doesn't make the cake look so smooth. So this part is definitely as important as the finishing result or the end result.
Did you talk about your hand?
Yeah, well, okay. No, I didn't. I saw her doing the same thing. Okay, so when I roll mine, she's actually using the center of her palm, so, and she's doing really good. For some reason, if I use the center of my palm, I end up getting something like this. Like it's not as smooth. So I always use right here. But you see how she's cupping her palms? And then like when she's done, then it looks more round. That's definitely what you want to do. So definitely try to figure out what works for you. This doesn't work for me, so I use right here. But if that works for her and she's forming a good roundness to it, then you can go with whatever works for you. We want to make sure that it's kind of cool because when we put the sticks, that's what's going to help the sticks set. And that's probably like the mistake that you made. But
My boy,
when you put it in the fridge, after you finish boiling it, what's going to happen is when we dip the sticks and put it in there, the chocolate on the stick will set immediately. So it would help it kind of stay firmer. So when we dip it, it won't fall off.
I think that the
This is made with palm oil, coconut oil. Oh my gosh, people love coconut oil. It's so healthy. It's solid at room temperature. So to me, that's not healthy. Somebody might say something soon. I think they have said it's really not that good for you. It's good for your skin and your hair, right? So this is not even really chocolate. Another reason why I figured out why we are nailing it or not nailing it is we were trying to use real chocolate and it's just not working. So we've learned so many things today from Madonna that we will now be able to fulfill an order that we already have for May. Boswell's dance team has ordered cake pops and cupcakes from us. We are not charging that much because we want to make sure that they look as good as professionals. All right, so she has melted the candy melts. And go ahead, tell them what you're doing with the shortening and stuff.
Okay. So if I just melted the candy melts without the shortening, it would be too thick. And if I try to dip the cake pops, it would fall off the stick. So I had to add a little bit of shortening to it to thin it out a little bit. And I'm trying not to mix it too much because if I mix it too much, then it would get air bubbles in there. And when I dip the chocolate, then you have bubbles on the chocolate and then you would have to start popping it and then it'll create like a tiny hole and it won't be so smooth. So once we get it smooth enough,
So the whisk is a tool to add air, to aerate. So
not trying to
we don't
add
want air in here, so you need the right tool.
okay, so the next step right now is to put the sticks in. So you'll dip the stick about 1/2 inch in first. And you take one of them that's already cold. And you twist. You put it in. That's it. If it was cold enough, as soon as you stick it in, you'll see that the chocolate will start setting already. But since, yeah, it's setting, okay, that's good. So that's what you want. And even though it forms that, we're gonna dip it again, so it's not gonna be a problem. So, should be good.
Is that
Get the chocolate on the body of the stick on it. On the bottom of the stick.
So this is fine?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, if you're like trying to correct me.
No,
I was like, she
I was
ready
just
to
telling
get it.
you. I saw the way you were trying to get the chocolate off. So the difference between these and the cake balls is that when you do cake balls, a lot of times you'll see once you dip it, it would have like a disc type of thing on the bottom because it's sitting flat on a surface. And so when that chocolate dries, like the extra chocolate, it's gonna create like a disc on the base of that, the cake. So, but if you use these sticks, what we're gonna do when we're drying it is sit it on this, and then that way instead of it having a disc, it's just gonna dry like a cake pop basically.
So how do you dip the ones with the balls? Like, do you have a special tool?
I still use these, and then I would use like a toothpick or something to slide it off. Or some people use toothpicks and then just drop it right into the
You know
the
they have those
tiny
metal things
for
for
chocolate.
eggs when you dip eggs.
Okay, I have one
Dye.
for chocolate.
Yeah, dying eggs.
Yeah,
So they used to come with it. It was like a little stick.
and then it slides right off. Yeah, if you push the stick in too much, then it will definitely come out from the top. So you just have to be mindful about that. So now that I'm done, we can actually start dipping. But this is still too thick, so I'm gonna add some more shortening into this and leave this in the fridge for a little bit.
I just want to go in.
So I'm tapping my hands like this so that the excess of the chocolate will fall off. Because if I don't tap it, once you set it up on the phone, it's gonna start dripping off the stick.
Okay, that looks way better than what I would have done. I would have just right. Cute.
Why did it go back so fast? Do you want to put it there? Oh my god, that's so cute.
Do you remelt your chocolate?
If it's hard, yeah.
I mean,
Like, would you scrape that up and
You could.
save it?
Could,
It
yeah.
would be a big puddle by the time you're done, right? Ooh, I love it. Whatever you do, whatever
I
you
can
do.
do individual, but I don't know how much time it takes.
And then the low violet.
So we're running out of space.
Okay.